Hello and welcome to the Keep Right On podcast. I'm Alex Dicken and I'm joined by my usual co-host and colleague Brian Dick, who tells me he's marginally better than this time last week when he was definitely worse for wear. Brian, how are you?
Worse for wear makes me sound like hungover. I was definitely not hungover. I'm on the mend, thanks Alex. Thank you for your concern. Hopefully don't sound quite as like I've just come off a lung ward or a respiratory ward in the QE today.
Not that bad, no. So we are here after Blues advanced to the fourth round of the FA Cup with a 2-1 win over Lincoln City. It sounds quite a nervy game, an edgy game, but it was a pretty convincing 2-1 win. Other than that, very late Lincoln penalty and a header in the 95th minute from Freddie Draper that went just wide. Blues were relatively comfortable, Brian, fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was probably what's becoming quite a standard Blues performance, wasn't it, really? Bit of quality in the attacking third, decent, reasonable amount of cohesion, I thought, for so many changes. Certainly from the start, the Blues looked to, the machine seemed to be doing okay, didn't it, without the likes of Pekka Iwata. But then, as ever, there always seems to be moments where you think, oh, well, if the opposition had scored there, it would have been a very different game. But the opposition doesn't tend to score that often. I suppose, if when we're back in the Championship, that will become more of an issue. But at the moment, Blues are gifting maybe one or two chances a match and getting away with it because they've got quality up front. So yeah, job done, wasn't it, really? As we seem to be saying every week, take the win, move on and don't look back.
Yeah, an awful lot of wins this season. I thought Blues, like you said, bro, I thought Blues were really good for the first 25, 30 minutes of the game when Lynden Dykes was getting into the 10 position on the half turn and freeing Yokoyama quite a little bit down the left-hand side. We'll come on to Yokoyama shortly, but, there are a few occasions where he probably could have done better with his end product. Second half, other than the absolutely ridiculous goal Dykes scored, there wasn't really much to shout about for either team until stoppage time, and the referee has given a bit of a dodgy penalty, in my opinion. And then it's kind of given Lincoln that little leg up to go and push for that equaliser in stoppage time that thankfully they didn't get. But all in all...
Do you think it was a dodgy penalty, really? I can absolutely see why that's been given. 100% I can see why it's been given.
He looked like he got the ball, and then the players kind of carried on running to go and get the ball, and has tripped over his leg, which is obviously on the floor from making the sliding challenge. That's what it looked like to me. I thought it was a little bit harsh. I think it's one of those that you'd be annoyed if it went against you, and you'd probably be shouting and screaming the house down for it to go in your favour if it's at the other end.
I think if that goes against you, you're looking at yourself and thinking, why have I put that tackle in with 2 feet in that situation? As I say, I totally get that. I really do.
Davies did say that, to be fair, that he's given the referee a decision to make by going to ground. And I suppose we can excuse Alfie Chang because it was his first senior game in 17, 18 months. So maybe he's going to be a little bit rusty at that stage. But yeah, moving on, Brian, should we start with Yokoyama? Because he does seem to be a name that's been on everyone's lips for probably the whole of this season, given his lack of game time. But I think on Saturday we maybe saw why he doesn't get that much of a look in league games.
I mean, this podcast has been something of a Yokoyama fan club, hasn't it, in the last few weeks? And Yokoyama seems to have been a classic case of the guy gets better when he doesn't play. What is there to say other than really nice finish for the first goal and for the rest of the game? You go and okay, Chris Davis is seeing something that we're not seeing, and I suppose we always did say that, didn't we? That Chris Davis had a much broader picture, obviously with training and the bits and bobs around the training ground that we weren't privy to. We were just watching a Blues team with not that much pace struggle to break opponents down, thinking, oh well, this kid's got pace and this kid can go either way. And I have to say, he did not take his chance at all.
No, I agree. Yeah, the big frustration for me is we both bigged him up for being able to go both ways and go on the outside, and he didn't go on the outside anywhere near enough for my liking. He kept coming back into the traffic, which maybe he'd been instructed to do. We don't know that, but and then he's delivering crosses that weren't very good off his right foot, and that is naturally his stronger side. But I would have liked to have seen him go down the outside where there was more space and pull balls back more often, like he did in that first game that he played against Wycombe, which has almost kind of set the tone for the Yokoyama loving, hasn't it? Really, that assist for Luke Harris in 3 minutes at Wycombe, and we've kind of been waiting for him to do that again, and he hasn't been able to. But his end product was poor. His decision making in the final third, I thought, was quite poor, and he drifted out of the game second half completely and didn't really seem to be on the same wavelength as his teammates. There was one little example second half where Alex Cochrane has opened up to play a ball to him out wide, and Yokoyama's just running. He's gone, and Cochrane obviously wanted him to come to feet, and he's played a shorter pass, and he's just it's been cut out by the defender. When you'll look at that and you'll say maybe it's Cochrane's mistake, but it's probably Yokoyama's mistake for not coming to the ball in the first place. So there are a lot of little things like that. The potential's undeniable. He's got so many great attributes. He's 21 years old. He's very young in a new country, as Chris Davis has kept saying. I suppose by the end of this season and going into next pre-season, you would hope that a season of training and playing minutes under Chris Davis will, reap dividends, and we'll see actually a better, more fine-tuned player.
We've also kicked around the idea of him going out on loan, haven't we? And obviously at the moment, with Keshi Anderson injured and Emil Hansen injured, that would seem that Blues can't afford to let another body go, no matter how much development that body needs. If Blues do get one in that position, I do think there's a lot of merit to letting him out to another League One side and letting them find out in a way, without being too cynical about it.
There's two sides to it, isn't there? I mean, I want him to play football in England and kind of learn that way. And, go and make mistakes elsewhere for a team that's in mid-table that don't really have a lot of jeopardy in their games, where he can, afford to get things wrong sometimes, because Chris Davis had admitted that it's sometimes difficult to play young players because of the scenario Blues are in, that they're competing at the top of the league and after wins every single week, and there's very little margin for error. But there's also the argument that maybe he's better served training the Blues way for the rest of the season.
The Phil Foden plan.
Yeah, the Phil Foden plan, being under Chris Davis' eye for another 4 or 5 months, and just having it absolutely drilled into him relentlessly. Obviously, they've got for the language barrier issue, they've got the translator at the training ground now, haven't they, who can obviously translate for Yokoyama and Iwata on some occasions too. So, whether it would be that easy to sort that, to facilitate that somewhere else as well, I'm not too sure. So, I don't know. It's a difficult one. I'm probably in your camp, whereas I want to see him play. But at the same time, if Chris Davis did keep him around in a squad player capacity where he occasionally makes benches, then I could probably understand it, because Man City did do that with Phil Foden for 2 or 3 years, didn't they? And without a loan move, and then all of a sudden he's an absolute world beater and playing every single week because he's learnt the system. So I think learning the system might, in Davis' mind, outweigh playing somewhere else and playing more minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of how many training sessions equals one 90-minute league match or cup match, isn't it? And if he now goes another 3 weeks before we see him on the pitch again, is that the best for his development? You and I don't have an answer for this, and I'd be surprised if Davis and the recruitment staff and the people at Blues weren't kicking around thoughts like this as well. At least having this discussion. So, there isn't an answer, unfortunately. I'd be inclined to start him against Swindon. Just go again. Get him used to that back-to-back Saturday Tuesday experience. Another part of his development, and see where we go from there.
And also, Brian, in a way, we can excuse him for being, we can excuse him for being a little bit rusty, and when he gets into those attacking positions and not having the great end product, because he has just got another month without football. Yeah, without match minutes, so that it's very difficult for him to come in, once a month or once every 2 months and make a big impact, because he's not playing minutes regularly. We've given other players that excuse throughout the season who haven't played regular minutes, So we should probably lend it to Yokoyama as well, because he's not played much football, has he? Got what, 1 minute at Wigan? So I'd like you said, Brian, I'd like to see him play again against Swindon, because has he started every game in that competition? I think he has, hasn't he? He has, yeah.
Yeah, let's say yes.
He has.
And I've got to say, when he plays, he does tend to do something, doesn't he? He scored at the weekend. He scored in 2 against Fulham. Did he get an assist in the Vertu Trophy at Exeter as well?
He did.
I think he did. So he does provide. He does make contributions. When he's on the pitch, and also, if Yokoyama doesn't score within 30 seconds of kickoff, that's a different game on Saturday as well, isn't it? So, let's acknowledge the good and the frustrating at the same time.
And just quickly, I know Chris Davies has bigged up Keshi Anderson this season for goal contributions per 90 minutes. Yokoyama's actually right up there with Blues wingers for that. Only Anderson's better than him this season. So I think he's got something like a goal or assist every 140 minutes, I think, last time I checked. Scott Wright will be in the conversation as well, but he's considerably better than Emil Hansen, who's obviously had a lot more minutes.
Yeah, indeed. Right, I think we sucked the life out of Yokoyama, haven't we? That there isn't an answer, is there? The other lesser spotted Blues player was Alfons Sampsted. What role did he play, Alex, and what did you make of him?
It's interesting because I spoke to Chris Davies about Alfons on Thursday, and basically one of my questions was, if you do keep him at the club beyond this month, to the end of this month, is it actually worth his while to stay second half of the season? Is there going to be enough minutes in it for him? And Chris Davies basically kind of reeled off all the positions that he thought he can play, and one of them was as a hybrid centre-back. And lo and behold, Alfons Sampsted played as a hybrid centre-back against Lincoln. In possession, it was a kind of the right of the back three with Clara in the middle and Cochrane to the left. And out of possession, he was just almost as an orthodox centre-back with Clara. And I thought he grew into the game and actually did quite well. I'd have probably, based on first half performance, had him down as a 6 in the player ratings by the end of the game. But by the end of his time, because he did go off a little bit early, I'd have had him as a 7. I thought he actually played quite well. Defensively, he was good. On the ball, he was pretty decent. You can't really have too many complaints when a player plays like that out of position. And Lincoln were a fairly physical team. So yeah, for him, 5'9", 5'10", full back to play at centre back so well, fair play to him. The only issue I have with Sampsted, I still don't see massive opportunity in terms of game time for him second half of the season. I still think he's probably going to be third choice right back at least. Christian Bielik has played right back recently, so maybe even fourth. He might get more minutes at left back, deputising for Cochrane occasionally. I can't really see him playing as a hybrid centre back in the league. So I think his minutes are going to be limited. But from what I'm told, he's an absolutely outstanding character. So he's probably the sort who could stick around for another 4 or 5 months and not bleat about it.
Yeah, and there was nothing reading between the lines of what Davis said to say, well, actually, we are looking at that this month.
No, exactly. There wasn't.
Yeah, it was very much you're probably right, actually. He's a good character. We'll keep him around. He's horrible thing to say, but he's an easy one to sort of not play or have as a squad player because, as you say, he doesn't bleat. But nice to see him. I do. There's definitely something in there. For me, I do think he's got plenty of potential. The other individual I wanted to talk about was Alfie Chang. That's obviously notable for the fact that he was making his first appearance back from his really bad knee injury. Was it 16 months? How long was it?
His last game was August 8th, 2023, and I think the injury happened on August 22nd off the top of my head. So yeah, right. It's been a while.
A really nice moment, wasn't there? St Andrews was pleased to see him, and obviously he got that round of applause in the dressing room afterwards as well.
Yeah, because also it's important to remember Chang was actually doing quite well in the Championship at the time of his injury. He played in 22-23. I think he'd made about 14 appearances in the league that season. And he didn't really look out of place. He came in towards the end of the season where Blues put that run of results together against Rotherham, QPR, Millwall, and did quite well in the team. So there's definitely a good player in there. I thought he did okay. against Lincoln. You could tell he was rusty. Obviously, we've already talked about the challenge. It was a little bit rash, but that's probably the sign of a player who hasn't played in so long. But it was good to see him on the pitch. Nice to see that he got such a good reception, which you obviously would expect, and nice to see he got that round of applause in the dressing room after so long out. And for this month, I think it's probably now he's played that game at a good time to get him out on loan somewhere and get him the chance to play 4 months of football, maybe in League Two, just to kind of feel his way back into it. Or if there is any, lower end mid-table League One sides, I'm sure he could probably play at this level as well.
Yeah, indeed. Just ask you a question here. Wind back to August 2023, and Alfie Chang is where Alfie Chang is at in his development. You take that player and you drop him in fully fit, and you drop him into this squad. He's obviously not Peko Iwata. Is he up there with Leonard or Gardner Hickman, do you think? I guess I'm just speculating for when he does return in the summer and going forward. Where will he be in the pecking order when he's up and running again, do you think?
It's difficult because the sample size is a little bit smaller with Chang, isn't it?
Yeah.
And obviously he was a lot younger and he's had a really serious injury. So I think he's probably around Gardner Hickman. That Alfie Chang back then, I think would be around Gardner Hickman. Who was he playing second fiddle to at the time? Bielik and Sunjic in a very different type of football team.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So again, it will depend on how he can adapt to the way that Chris Davies wants to play, won't it? I think I wouldn't say, Ivan Sunjic is an awful kind of footballer, but he's better suited to John Eustace style of player than he would be to Chris Davies. Like, he wouldn't get in this midfield under Chris Davies, would he? Because he's simply not good enough on the ball at that side of the game. So it depends how well Alfie Chang can adapt to the style of play, I guess, to see whether he has a long-term future at Blues. It's probably like that for a few of the players. When you look at someone like George Hall, I think his injury record is probably more important. But also, how can he adapt to a team that has more of the ball rather than a team that plays primarily on counter-attack, which obviously suits his style of play because he's a very fast player.
I think potentially Chang's got a chance. A pre-injury version of Chang has got a chance because he's intelligent and his distribution is good. So yeah, Godspeed to him. It'd be really nice to have him back in the summer, fit and raring to go for a good pre-season. I suppose the final comment worthy thing was the Lyndon Dykes goal, wasn't it? Echoes of Gaza against Scotland in 1996, chipping the ball over Colin Hendry, I think it was, and then volleying home from the edge of the box. It was a stupendous goal from Dykes, wasn't it? Real good technique, and boy, was that a welcome goal for him.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. It's so weird because Dykes has scored more Championship goals than League One goals this season. Based on one game for QPR where he scored against Sheffield United. He hasn't scored in, I think it's 18 for Blues in League One. Fair enough, only 5 of them have been starts, but he would have expected to score by now. He scored 3 and 3 in the Cup, so EFL Trophy and also 2 FA Cup games. So it's been a little bit of light relief for him in the Cup matches. I thought he was really good. I thought he was the best player on the day for Blues, definitely. Yeah. Playing in that 10 role where there's probably a little bit less pressure on him to go and be the guy who scores the goals. I thought, like I said earlier, I thought he was excellent in the half turn in terms of bringing others into play and moving the ball forward. He knocked down a couple of really nice balls from long goal kicks that nobody was quite close enough to pick up on. I thought it was one of his better games in the Blues, for Blues. And it probably, when there were so many changes around, I thought he really stepped up and actually led the team. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he got the nod against Swindon in the Vertu Trophy as well.
He looks to me like a player that other players enjoy playing with. Other out-and-out strikers, I think, will enjoy playing with Lyndon Dykes because he'll attract defenders. He'll use his frame to engage them physically and kind of leave the Alfie Mays and I suppose to an extent the Jay Stansfields are alone to do their business and go about their business as they please. Confident in the knowledge that he might pick them out with a pass, he might find them with a knockdown. I think I don't think he's looked massively confident, if I'm honest, since he's been here. Hopefully, this will be, the start of something quite good for him, because I thought Davis's point about him being tactically very astute and giving Blues a lot of options when he came onto the pitch in terms of their formation, I think that's really quite valuable as well, because we know that Chris Davis loves a tactical tweak, doesn't he? And players like with that versatility, like Sampsted and Dykes, it's not it doesn't provide a completely different plan B, but it does provide a plan A 0.1 or something like that, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, and it's made me, watching Dykes play in the 10 has made me think that maybe Stansfield, Dykes and May could all play together at some stage, and maybe even Willemsen. So if you could have the four of them as your front four, because I actually thought, was it against Blackpool that Dykes played as the 9 and May played as a 10? And it didn't quite work, did it?
Yeah,
they really struggled.
Got the wrong way around. Yeah.
Well, yeah, if they played the other way around, maybe it would work better. So I've been surprised by how comfortable he looks in that 10 position, because looking at him, he is that kind of big focal point target man, isn't he? And speaking to Chris Davis previously, he did suggest that mainly he sees him as that, and he probably still does. But I think him doing so well in the 10 position, not just the Lincoln game, but also the Blackpool game previously, probably has given Davis food for thought, because he hasn't really been, due to all the winger injuries, he hasn't really been blessed with options to play in the 3 behind the striker recently, whereas he's had 4 players fit for most of the season vying for that one position up front.
All of which brings us to Newcastle at home in the FA Cup. Please do that. Better than Newcastle away, I suppose, isn't it? Is the obvious answer to that.
Way better than Newcastle away. I think it's a really good draw. Obviously, one of the biggest clubs left in the competition. Finished top 4 a couple of years ago, on course to challenge for the Champions League place again in the Premier League this season. Always bring a really massive following, and it's not one of those ties that you look at and think an upset is absolutely impossible. There's a very, very small chance that Blues, if they get everything absolutely right in terms of their game plan, could cause an upset. And I also think players like Peck, Awata, Willemsen, Stansfield, players who we know are above League One level, could really turn it on against a team like that.
They'll really fancy it, won't they? This would be a Harley Dean game, wouldn't it? It would be one to make Harley Dean look like prime Maldini. I wonder. Listen, Chris Davis is not going to be swayed in his selection by whether it's on TV or not. But I wonder if he is. If it is on TV,
I think it will be, won't it? Definitely, surely going to be a TV pick, that game.
I mean, there are some good ties. The Plymouth Liverpool one could well find its way onto TV, couldn't it? I suppose the other one across the city could find its way onto TV as well, because the BBC do like the low hanging fruit tie, as we saw with Arsenal, Manchester United, don't they? It could well make its way onto TV, absolutely. And then you are duty bound to put out the A team, aren't you? I think
so. Yeah. I think he will anyway, to be honest, won't he? Because all the good players, all the best players in this team, all the guaranteed starters are going to want to play in that game. They're probably not going to be very happy if Chris Davis decides to rotate and rest them. So I reckon it'll be full strength for that. That's February 8th, isn't it?
February 8th, which means Peterborough match will be moved.
Yeah.
So come on to that.
I think by that point as well, this ridiculous run of fixtures will be calming down a little bit.
Well, you say that. There's midweek games in virtually every week in February as well, all the way through to what we assume will be the international break in March.
Well, Mark Lennon might get a league start then. Yeah, I definitely think he'll go full strength for that game, or very close to full strength.
Just to put it in context, Newcastle have won their last 8. In Alexander Isak, they've probably got certainly, if not the informed striker in the league, then the one most people are talking about. And the interesting wrinkle could be a return to St Andrews, having never played at St Andrews for the first team for Trayvan Sanusi. I think he made his Newcastle debut yesterday, obviously having left the Blues Academy and gone up to St James Park.
Dan Burn as well coming back.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So Sanusi, he came off the bench against Barrow. showed some nice touches. Looked like he was a little bit overeager, I thought, to maybe make a big impression. But just an interesting little aside there. And if I wonder how Blues fans will feel about this game. In terms of it, does it become a 28,000 sellout because it's Newcastle?
I think,
or is it still the FA Cup?
No, I think it does. I think they showed fans kind of showed on Saturday against Lincoln. It was 17,000, 18,000. That's bigger than Blues were getting for a lot of championship games last season. They would definitely that's definitely bigger attendance than they're getting in the season before the takeover had happened. So I think Blues fans are clearly invested in this competition, and I think they will really turn out for that game. I reckon it will be a sellout.
That's five. The Lincoln match is 5,000 more than the last time Newcastle were at Blues as well, because they got drawn in the FA Cup in Gianfranco Zola's era, I think it was, and there was actually, to be fair, Blues won the sort of the first tie. Well, no, they didn't win. They drew 1-1, and they were it was Zola's Blues with Adam Legstins in goal and players like Ryan Shotton and Jonathan Spector and Paul Robinson trying to play this Zola style, this more expansive football against Rafa Benitez's Newcastle. And to be fair to Blues, they did okay, and they got a 1-1 draw and lost the replay. And then Newcastle were back that year in March at a time when Zola was sort of at the tail end of his tenure, and Newcastle were absolutely flying by that point, and it was so obvious they were going up. And Blues drew 0-0, and it was a welcome relief, I remember, because Zola was sort of torn between. He couldn't get the balance between attack and defence right. And when Newcastle came to town, it was obvious you just have to defend, and he played a 5-4-1, and they eked out a 0-0 draw. The problem started when Blues had to try and attack in games under Zola. So, yeah, just interesting little footnote. But I think in the FA Cup game that year, Newcastle bought like 4,500, and there were only 13,000 fans in the stadium or something like that. So, yeah, you're probably right. It probably will catch the imagination of a re-engaged fan base much more this time. Injury roundup, we should probably do that. You spoke to Davis, obviously, post-match, didn't you, on Saturday? Where are we with the likes of Anderson and Stansfield and Bielik and the rest of them?
So Anderson and Hansen behind. Anderson is slightly ahead of Hansen. So Hansen, I think we can expect to be without him for a little while again, which is obviously frustrating because he'd only just come back after 2 months, hadn't he? Bielik and Stansfield, I believe, are closer. I think there's half a chance we'll see Bielik this week. I'm just not sure, with it being a Vertu Trophy game, even though it's obviously very important and Blues want to win it. It's obviously not as important as the league game, so I'm not convinced we'll see Bielik in the Vertu. I think he won't wait until the end of the weekend's Exeter, and again Exeter Stansfield's going to be wanting to play in that one, isn't he, at St Andrews? So if they're not 100%, I don't think Chris Davies will be interested in risking them in a game against Swindon in the Vertu. So I think it's probably more likely those two will see him second half of the week.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of movement in the transfer market, hasn't there? Dion Sanderson has gone to Blackburn to be reunited with John Eustace. That makes sense in so many ways, doesn't it? Yeah.
When you thought of where Dion could potentially go, and you're looking at Championship clubs, because he has played over 100 games in that league, and he's done okay at points. There was only one club I was looking at and thinking, Blackburn, John Eustace, because Eustace signed him. If you look at QPR when he's assistant there, he's signed him 4 times now, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So, I was listening to Eustace speaking about Sanderson earlier, actually, and saying kind of all the things you'd expect him to say, and that he's always been a really good
He's competitive.
Competitive. He's always done well for him, hasn't he? And obviously they have a good relationship. He made him captain at Blues, didn't he? So I'm not really that surprised. It felt like it came a little bit out of the blue, but I'm not that surprised that Eustace is the one who's given him that championship lifeline. I think it's kind of good from a Blues perspective that it's a loan, because he's got the chance to hopefully do well in the championship again, and then hopefully Blues can recoup some of the £2 million they paid Wolves for him a couple of years ago. But yeah, it feels like a good loan move. Speaking to Chris Davies after the Lincoln game, asked him whether he wants to replace Sanderson this month and get a new centre back in, and he said absolutely yes. So Blues are going to be signing a centre back this month. There's obviously one name on everyone's lips. It's just whether that happens this month or in the summer.
Yeah, Blues need a new man at the back, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Yeah. I thought you were slightly harsh on Sanderson there. Listen, the last year has not been good. I'm not going to seek to defend that. But if you remember, the start of Eustace's last few weeks, the start of that season, Dion Sanderson was potentially player of the season after 11 games, I admit. But he was absolutely exceptional.
He was.
Eustace had made him his captain, and Sanderson was pretty much man of the match in virtually every game in the start of that. What was it? Was it 20? Was it only 23,
24?
Yeah. It was, wasn't it? Yeah. So
yes, I don't know. I agree, Brian. I remember back to that Leeds game at home when Blues won 1-0. Sanderson was absolutely ridiculous that day, and he is on his day a very good championship defender, playing in the right system. And we know Eustace has got a tune out of him before, so he'll play that same way, won't he? And Sanderson probably will have a good second half of the season if he gets in their team.
Yeah, but we definitely saw by the time the other side of Sanderson, didn't we? By the time Gary Rowett came in, and sort of even this season, who did he make a mistake against when he sort of ran under the ball and then gave it Northampton? Just a break makes sense, as I said at the start, makes so much sense for everybody. So yeah, good luck to Dion. Unusual for a player to go from the fringes of a League One side into a Championship team, but that's potentially where Blackburn are as well a little bit at the moment. I see they signed Adam Forshaw, if not on the same day, then within a couple of days of signing Sanderson, and he has had a wretched time at Plymouth. Good luck to Dion. There's nothing more to say on Neumann at the moment, is there, other than Davis has said that yes, they are looking to sign a replacement for Sanderson.
No, it's the same as whatever we said in it last week, I think, in that so he's obviously going to become a Blues player at some stage. It's just whether it's this month or not, whether Blues decide to accelerate that deal now or try to accelerate that deal. And then again, Hanover have got to let them sign him, haven't they, this month? So it's very much as you were.
Which brings us to Swindon on Tuesday evening down at the county ground to face Ian Holloway's improving side. They're not out of the woods yet, I would say, at the bottom of League Two, but they have shown a bit of form at home. I'm just going to read out your selected team. You think there'll be changes? You've gone for the 4-2-3-1, or however that morphs into what Chris Davies wants it to be. Ryan Alsop in goal. Laird and Sampsted at fullbacks, and Ben Davies returning alongside Christoph Clara, on the basis you don't think Bielik will be risked.
No, I don't think he'll play him.
And then you've gone for Iwata and Leonard in the middle of the park. Thoughts there?
Well, Iwata and Leonard, when Leonard has started games, he has played next to Iwata more times, I think, recently he's played next to Peck. And Iwata had the weekend off, didn't he? So I think he'll come back in. I don't think Chris Davies will want him to go two weeks without a game. He could even play Peck next to Iwata, couldn't he? But I just think he'll stick with Leonard, knowing that Peck's going to come back in for the league game against Exeter, isn't he? Yeah. So I like that pairing. I didn't like it the first time they played together against Walsall, I'll be honest with that. But since then, when they've played together, they played together at Shrewsbury in the Cup. And they played together against, was it Burton Albion on Boxing Day? And they look quite good together and dovetailed nicely. So that's a nice pairing for me, and it's worked. And also, Gardner Hickman, who's the other contender, has played a lot of football recently, hasn't he? So he might be due a rest.
Yeah, I mean, the other option there potentially would be Gardner Hickman at right back and Laird at left back, depending on whether Davis feels Sampsted can start twice in quick succession. You're attacking three, Scott Wright, who desperately need to start, Willemsen and Yokoyama, with Dykes up front, so no Juki goal, or not from the start anyway.
Yeah, so Wright again, like you said, Brian, needs a start. Played okay against Lincoln, but he's probably going to be needed out wide, isn't he, with all the injuries Blues have got? I think Chris Davies will be trying to get him at speed, so it makes sense to start him again in this game. Then you see how he is really for the game against Exeter. Willemsen, because he only played 20 minutes against Lincoln, I think he'll probably start and maybe come off early. The other option is Harris, but Harris has started the last couple of games, or has he started? No, he started the last two. And Yokoyama, like we said earlier, I think it's best to just persist with him at this stage. Play him if he's not going to play in the league games. At least give him these games, and let him try and work his way into a little bit of form, and obviously learn how to play the Chris Davies way. And Dykes, because he played so well against Lincoln, I think it's only fair to keep him in the team, in full knowledge really that Alfie May is going to start against Exeter, whether it's at Dykes' expense or whatever, I don't know, but likely he'll start that game, so why not give Dykes this one?
I'd be quite surprised if May doesn't start on Tuesday, to be honest. I think, as you've mentioned, I do think Davis likes the idea of getting to Wembley and, emulating the class of 95, as it were. Yeah, I think May might start. Yokoyama looks the most expendable name to me, and the ones you've come up with, but the rationale you make about back-to-back starts and getting into the swing of the season, that holds water too for me as well.
And also, what I will say is Mayer started all 4 games, hasn't he, in this competition, I think. So yeah, I could see him starting. I could see Yokoyama being left on the bench and Willemsen playing right playing left. And Dykes playing off May, hopefully not the other way around.
Yes, indeed. I think that covers about everything, doesn't it, Alex?
Hope so.
Yeah, we shall try and record another one later this week after the Swindon game and before the Exeter match on Saturday. So all that remains for me is to thank Alex for his time, and thank you all for listening in again. Please leave a comment. Interact with us any way you can. It does help enormously. So thanks from the both of us, and keep right on.